everyone, Devin here. It's been a super long time, but I wanted to make another video, and it's just been a while. Some things have changed. I've moved. I now actually have my own office in my new home, which is really nice. It's probably about 100 square feet, which allows me to kind of like step away from the kids and the dogs and all the excitement and be able to do these more quietly. So I think that I really want to look at doing a video over PC-BSD. Now I know some of you are like, dude, this is Linux Reviewed, but I have my reasons for PC-BSD this week, or well, probably for like the last 3 months. This is the first video. PC-BSD is kind of a new interesting thing for me because I use an app on my phone called Flipboard, and I keep up with like a lot of the technical stuff that's going on these days. And I've probably in the last like couple months since my last video, I've read numerous articles about like Linux users who are like, oh, BSD is so much better. And I'm sitting here like, well, I'm up for anything, honestly. I mean, I'll take a look at it. Windows users think that their operating system is the best, but so maybe they're wrong. So maybe BSD users are wrong, but I don't know. We're going to find out. But I think before we do that, we need to look at, well, what is BSD? Because for some of you who've been probably around the open source community for a while, you've at least heard of BSD, maybe you've tried BSD. But for any new people, they may go, well, what's BSD? And so it's the Berkeley software distribution. If you look, it's got a very long history. I mean, technically BSD it has been around much longer than Linux has. Now, as we know it, where it's open and community driven and developed in those natures, it's been shortly after Linux, actually, because Linux came about in 91, and the GNU project, which is actually all the other components that the Linux kernel utilizes, came out in, I think, like late 80s. So, BSD kind of came a little bit further along. Similarities between Linux and BSD is they, are Unix-like. There are some who out there argue that BSD is actually actual Unix, whereas Linux is more Unix-like, but without any type of, how do I put it, like authority figure to come in that gets paid to actually certify something as a Unix system. They all get dubbed as a Unix-like operating system. So, there's that. But like I said, so Bash shell, that's very common. It is also a open source project as well, community driven. Some of the perks that people kind of talk about when they're talking about BSD is that they're a smaller community, therefore they like a good example in Linux, one of our big problems, if you guys were following the whole systemd versus upstart argument. If you haven't, it's good kind of to look at. It took us like forever to come up with an answer. The BSD community is not to say that they move as quickly, like way quicker than we do, but they're a smaller community. They're able to move forward on certain subject matters much more quickly. One of the downsides to BSD, though, is that in the past, like if you wanted to run BSD, there was no, how do I put it, like easy way of installing it. There's one group that a while back, I remember a couple years ago on Distro Watch, called Ghost BSD, that was aiming to be like the Ubuntu of the BSD community. I tried running in a VirtualBox. It was absolutely horrendous. Now, I do know VirtualBox, or anytime you're virtualizing an OS, there could be some certain glitches and things that you're not going to care for. But no, it was positively horrible experience. So in this situation, we can go over to PC-BSD, right? And the PC-BSD is a BSD distribution that is for people. And the reason that this one was picked was because a lot of the articles I was going wasn't just over BSD, but it was over PC-BSD. It provides an easy installer. You get set up real quickly. There's just, like I said, I mean, this is the first time I have found BSD to be approachable. And now some people will be like, oh, well, sometimes you might need to learn how to actually install BSD. And that's fine. However, I use an operating system to work. My operating system shouldn't be work. I need it to do work. So if I have to spend any excessive amount of time setting something up, I mean, I don't mind once I'm logged in and everything's going, setting things up. But if I have to take a large amount of time to install, I'm okay. So if you're looking for a full-featured desktop or rock-solid server, PC-BSD has a solution for you. You can learn more about the PC desktop, learn more about their servers, net installation, simple, stable, secure, very, I mean, it's like almost every other website we go to, right? PC-BSD with Lumina desktop, however you say that, Lumina desktop. This release of PC-BSD refocuses, it basically goes through a bunch about the design of it. This is the 10.2 release, which was done August of 2015. And they brag about their high speeds. Now, you may be asking, why would they brag about high speeds? Well, first, let's look at three things real quick. So, self-healing file system, ZFS. ZFS is, some of you guys may have been reading, I believe Ubuntu in the next release is going to ZFS. ZFS is going to become probably the new standard in file systems. There is also ButterFS. There's an argument that ButterFS is superior. I have not personally dealt with a whole lot of ZFS or ButterFS. I'm pretty much still on ext4. But these file systems are far more advanced and will actually make us have a superior file system to NTFS. Believe it or not, ext4 has some perks over NTFS, which is the Windows file system. But there are a lot of things the Windows file system is way above us on just because it's a newer file system. Now, this is a community-driven project, but at the same time, there is a company that is supporting it, and we don't really need to know more about TrueOS. That's more of the server side of things. But there's IX Systems, which is you guessed it, NAS company. If you know anything about BSD, that is like their big go-to, NASes. All they ever talk about are NASes, right? I mean, it's not to say they don't do a lot on desktop, but their enterprise model is storage. It always has been. Linux is server administration, cloud, and for the BSD side of the house, it's always going to be mass storages. Okay, really good stuff. So IX Systems, I've never used any of their products, but they definitely have a cool video on their main page if you'd like to check it out. It's really, really awesome. The only thing that kind of caught, well, I'll get to that, I guess, later. Let's hop into the desktop. So here we are in PC-BSD 10. So first off, I will say that the installer is light years better than anything you'll find on any other BSD distribution. It's very easy to use, very easy to set up. The only thing about the installer that kind of made me go, it kind of reminds me of some of the older installers that I think I would have found on Fedora before they went to the Anaconda installer, where you set up the system installation, you installed it, and then the system would go through a reboot, and then there was the process where you create your user accounts and everything. Okay. It kind of feels like redundant work. You're almost at first you're whoa, did it install correctly? No, it did. Okay. So they, by default, at least from what I've seen, is shipping the KDE desktop. Okay. Looks like maybe we're not in Bash. No, we're not in Bash. Oh, that's interesting. You could use Bash. I figured they would be, but it's kind of like the standard. But, okay. C shell. That'd probably be interesting. So, I retract, not Bash. You can use Bash. I don't know if it comes as a pre-installed shell, but, C shell, okay, interesting. So you might have to learn a little syntax difference with the BSD side of the house. So anyway, KDE desktop, right? It's the older KDE desktop, which I kind of get it. BSD focuses highly on stability and security. Those two criteria have to be met. So Example being, even though some Linux distributions have been shipping the new Plasma 5 desktop now for some time, not a huge amount of time, but a notable amount of time, the Plasma 5 still is not deemed as a stable desktop, so BSD is going to be sticking onto the Plasma 4. You have the handbook, you have the BSD control panel, you have your app cafe, that's a nice name. You have your updater, which I will tell you right now, we'll get into the updater. It's kind of painful. We have over here the life preserver, which I'll cover in a minute. This is, I guess, to set up network shares. Yep. This is your clipboard tool. And then it's telling me, it's showing a battery icon. This is running on my desktop. There's no battery. So we'll cut some slack there. Traditional KDE menu, just like we're kind of familiar with in the Linux-based systems. I'm thinking, so for like games, yeah, BSD people aren't very, the ones I've met aren't the funnest people, so Amor. Interesting. Graphics, so decent amount, right? GIMP, Paint program, okay. And then internet, web, Firefox is pretty much this, VNC server, network, folder wizard, okay, not too bad. Multimedia, you got VLC, volume control, SM player, M player, which doesn't look like it has an icon, disk burning. Okay. Office, document viewer, sweet. For utilities, we can go into the utilities, and the one that I wanted to look for, and let's see if I can find it. If not, we can go back to all applications, do K sysguard. Okay, we open up that. And so right now we can see that the way this virtual machine is set up is with 2 CPUs and 3 gigs of RAM. Okay, with 2 CPUs, the CPU load's okay, very minimal. Memory is about 800. What is that? Like 860 megabytes. Pretty reasonable, right? I mean, not really horrible here. So very nice little system honor. So let's kind of go over some of this, what we would deem the secret sauce behind PC-BSD. It's not really secret, but it's what makes. Why would you pick PC-BSD over free BSD, or there's another one like OpenBSD? One is the installer, right? If you're a Linux guy and you're like, okay, I don't mind doing a little command line work, except I need to be able to install in under like 20 minutes, right? There's that. The other difference is an app store. I'm not a BSD user. So, for example, if you were to ask me, hey, how do I install a software in BSD? I'd have to Google it just like you. I have no flipping idea. Okay. But they provide this excellent app store. Okay. And let's see here. Okay, it feels a little dated if you were to ask me on a more serious level. It does. It feels very dated, but functional, okay? So let's say, for example, I wanted to look at LibreOffice, okay? LibreOffice is a free powered. We all know what LibreOffice is. It comes default in Linux. Well, for some reason, and whatever that reason may be, LibreOffice doesn't come in, PC-BSD. GIMP was important enough to include, but a word processor wasn't. So we'll click, are you sure you want to install? Okay. Now, one of the things I really like that PC-BSD has done here is every time I open an application that has rights to change something about my system, install software, remove software, do this, that, and the other thing, okay? What I really, really like is it asks me for my root privileges up front, so then that way I can go through uninterrupted and do whatever I want in here. Okay, that's really, really, really cool. In terms of like in Ubuntu, if I go into the Software Center, it doesn't prompt you anything to open the Software Center. You can then go and download an application, type in your credentials. You can install that application. If you're fast enough, you can get a couple applications in before it re-prompts you. But at the end of the day, if you're doing a lot of software installs, say it's a fresh install of your Linux desktop, you're going to have a lot of, credentials to be typing in throughout the process. Okay. Let's go look at audio. Okay. Audacity, Amarok, Clementine. Okay. So one of my concerns about BSD, but it seems like it's not as bad as I would have anticipated, okay, is that they wouldn't have all the software I wanted. Linux is a much larger tux guitar on a BSD system. There'd be a, how do I put it? Like almost like we would be limited because they're not as big of a community, and you don't really hear a lot of developers talking about their BSD port. Hell, Linux is just now starting to seeing some mainstream applications. Let's look for a common media, like music player, okay? Let's see if I check mark. Pigeon, okay. That's interesting. So no Banshee. Ooh, my favorite these days, though. I just picked Banshee because Banshee is like a very common one. Okay, they have Tomahawk. Now, maybe they don't have Banshee because Banshee's no longer supported. That's possible. I don't know if there's truth behind that. Maybe they just don't have it. But they have Tomahawk. Tomahawk is a music player that fundamentally changes the way music this. Now, what about proprietary software? So let's do that. Let's do Plex. I'd be interested. Well, by golly, look at that. Plex Media Server in the BSD store. That's really cool. For those of you who know, I think Plex is a proprietary application. Let's take a look here. It opens up. Conquer. Okay. Oh, it's taking me here. Now, I can't say Plex actually maybe is too surprising. Just for the fact that if you've ever used like FreeNAS, Plex is a plugin that you can put in. So anyway, the App Store, it's very, I don't want to say childish. That sounds really wrong. Let's see, updates, install, local system failed. Oh, that failed. How interesting. Okay. Yeah, so that's not a good sign, but that could just be a result of the virtualization. Doubtful, but yeah. So anyway, it's not like it's a bad looking app store. It looks okay, especially maybe if this is like real early days for them. I can completely get that. Now, here was what I thought was cool. The PC-BSD control panel. All right, have you ever been do you miss control panel in Windows, or are you like a Windows administrator who, is use Linux, but, if you use Windows Server at work, which may not be your choice, your environment may just be a Windows house. Me, unfortunately. You've got a lot of applications here, okay? And this brings me very close to a Windows-styled house, okay? I'm not saying that's what I want, but what I am saying is it's nice to see, now, mind you, I don't know how well it works, but Active Directory, that is huge. Service Manager, that is huge. System Manager, that is huge. Okay? Some of you guys might be sitting here going, I haven't used Windows in years, or I've never used Windows from a administration standpoint. I prefer the Unix server, and we are slowly starting to roll a few of those, rolling a few of those at work. But when I moved into this job, it was a Windows admin job, and you get used to working some of these tools, and one of the problems you always face is you sit down and you go, man, I'd love to use my Unix-like box at home or at work, but I gotta tie it in Active Directory. Some would argue, no, you don't have to. Either way, if, say, the company policy dictates that you have to, that the system has to, especially if it's a company computer, be managed by Active Directory, this may be something where I could sit back and go, I mean, I am curious to see how good it is, but without, taking this into work, yes, looks AD and LDAP configuration. This looks like it would actually be pretty straightforward. Okay. To know whether it works or not, I would assume so, but who knows? Firewall manager. Now, yet again, this is very nice because it is, right? Hold on. Is it really just going to be enable firewall on startup? Stop, restart? Open ports? This is really nice, right? Service manager. Cool. Storage devices. Report a bug. Life preserver. I'm going to show you guys this life preserver minute because that is awesome, I think. So I mean, pretty awesome, right? Login manager. I mean, you got all these things, and it has that KDE familiarity. You can toggle it back and forth. Now, let me tell you one of the things I ran into. Okay, so take example. You want to adjust your display. Okay, you think you just come down here and hit display? Nope. Schedule the display wizard to run on the next reboot. No, I just want to edit it. So then you can click over here, and then this opens up KDE, the actual system control for KDE. Now, before I get into that, we need to cover what are the strong points here. I mean, like, what do these guys got going on that makes maybe the Linux user jealous? Oh, before that, let's open up Life Preserver. This is awesome. Guess what it is, ladies and gentlemen? A built-in backup utility that doesn't suck. Ubuntu has a built-in backup utility, but if you've seen that thing create a bad backup as often as I have, trust me, you're looking at one of these going, yeah. This is pretty awesome. So you just go File and Unmanaged Pools, Tank. Are you sure that you wish to cancel the unmanned snapshot? Yes, I'm pretty sure. I was playing with it earlier. Yes, moving the snapshot. Okay, I mean, manage pools, tank. Okay, and give it a second, it'll pop up here. This is going to give us the ability, well, it should pop up. This will give us the ability to create full snapshots of our system. There we go. Next. So you can do it automatically, daily at a certain time, hourly, specify, you do it every 10 minutes if you want. Enable a scheduled scrub, you can set that up. And then proceed directly to the advanced configuration options. Okay. Offsite data replication at any time within this. I mean, it's huge, right? So, okay, local snapshot. I could create it locally and figure out, I can sit down and say, okay, I want to put it here, right? Replication. I don't think, so I could do iSCSI, or I can do an SSH saying that I have a Linux or Unix styled server in the home, which I do, but I'm not going to, set up a backup of my virtual machine. Scrub, and then, do your data scrub. Okay. Yet again, like, this is cool, right? I mean, I'm not saying like the backup in Ubuntu is horrible. I think it's very easy to use. It customizes very well. But I have seen that backup not be able to restore. Someone will probably tell me, oh, you're doing something wrong. And it's like, no, I'm pretty sure it's a pretty simple backup tool. So, I mean, now let's go down the road I was going to go to. Like, why are Linux users so jealous of BSD? Like, why do people talk about BSD? You know what? Because any of us Linux users who come from the Windows world, we'll be using Linux and we go, man, I'm going to write a GUI tool for that. I don't mind doing it via command line, but there used to be just like this tool I'd open up and I'd say, do this and do that. BSD is giving us that, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, legitimately, okay? Like I said, you come in to the PC-BSD control panel, and I mean, look, App Cafe, Easy PBI, I don't know what that is, Update Manager, About, I mean, look at all this great stuff, especially, like I said, if you were like, back in the day, a Windows powerhouse administrator, you went to Linux because, let's face it, Linux is awesome, but you do miss some of those tools it used to have where it was like a one click and boom, it was done. this could bring you back to that point. This is impressive. I like this, right? And I'm sure there's a few people who are like, dude, no, this is pretty flippin' lame. We should do everything via command line. But I mean, okay, let's even make another argument, okay? Like, I use Ubuntu. If you watch one of my previous videos, I go on a rant about how the Linux community, how it's funny how the Linux community, so many of us think, oh, we don't need a firewall. Why? Last time I checked, Linux uses all the same protocols and standards and web internet security functionality as any proprietary operating system. Why do we not need a firewall? The only argument you could make is if you have an enterprise level firewall running on your home network, but seriously, unless you got procured one of those for like next to nothing, that's pretty flippin' lame. This comes with a firewall built in. What? And then a GUI manager for it. What? I mean, I know what some of you guys are thinking. You guys are like, oh no, this is crazy, right? But I mean, it's things like that. It's like going in and going, huh, that's really cool. That came built in. Okay. This CUPS printer support. System web GUI. Now, CUPS can come in a variety of ways. Like, most of us have CUPS. Now, I can be wrong. Let's find out. CUPS. Nothing. Now, guess what, though? You're wrong. CUPS is on here. I can physically attach a printer to my machine. CUPS comes on most Linux and Unix systems. Now, whether you get the web GUI with it, that's a whole different ballgame. Why would you not include that? If you want to be able to attach a printer, why would you not give it? And some people would say, oh, well, why don't you just, go into your system settings and click on, where is it? There should be like a printer option. Okay. Printers is cool. It works. It's easy. CUPS has a lot more. And let's face it, Linux and Unix is for the more technical savvy. Boot manager, editor, you got your updater. I mean, seriously, there are things, when I was going through this, I went, why can we not build something as equally as good as this? And like I said, if the BSD community figured out how to do Active Directory through a GUI tool, awesome. Because last time I checked on Linux, it is very much possible with editing configuration files. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I don't mind editing configuration files, but if there is a GUI tool, why are we not using it? Okay, I mean, seriously, right? So you might be sitting down now thinking, and like it's great, but you guys now may be sitting down, you may be thinking, well, so you make the switch to PC-BSD, and here's my answer. Hell no. This thing reminds me too much of Windows. There's all that like Windows bliss that you get, right? Where you're like, wow, there's GUI tools for everything. And then the problems start. So one of the problems I ran into was this stupid update soft utility. Let me see. Okay, start the update manager. If I have to restart the VM, I'm willing to do this. I had to restart it. It started going and then it froze on me, and I was very upset by this. Okay. This actually looks, now when I say this reminds me of Windows, this doesn't mean from a physical appearance, just like how it operates. Okay, so guess what? I already ran updates and installed updates. It's just like Windows. Like in Linux, you get like all your updates at once when you run your commands. So in Ubuntu's case, sudo apt update, colon or semicolon, sudo apt upgrade. You'll get all your stuff at that point. Like in Windows, they like come in waves, right? It happened the same thing here. I installed a series of updates, and as soon as it was done, it said, hey, you have more updates. And I went, what? No. It is nice. You can configure automatic updates, and you can tell it what kind you want. You may want to do this because, and look, it even tells you, start in the background 20 minutes after the system boot and every 24 hours of uptime. Okay? That's great, but I had an issue. Oh, and I tried to install the second round. 20 minutes later, just had to restart the VM completely. Now there could be an argument of issues with the VM's network card. That is possible, but I don't understand BSD why I have to install my updates in waves. Is it that monolithic kernel you guys use? We'll get to that, here in a second. Okay. The next problem I had. So the displays, like I said, I can't hit it there. I have to come over here and go to display and monitors to get the traditional monitors. So, how do I get back? I think I just opened up this one. So why offer it in the PC-BSD control panel if it doesn't work? Like, seriously. Okay? As we've seen, App Cafe, you really don't look that great. And it allegedly told me that LibreOffice failed to update when we went to the update section. So let's actually go to Applications. Let's go to Office. Yep, no LibreOffice. Now, here's the other thing, and this is where like BSD people are kind of funny. You thought GIMP was a good tool to package, but LibreOffice was irrelevant. Really? Seriously? I mean, no LibreOffice? I mean, I'm willing to bet more people will use LibreOffice over GIMP. Seriously, right? You know, coming over and like, okay, did you guys notice when I clicked on a link, he opened up in Conqueror, not Firefox. Pick a web browser, use a web browser, and when you do, make sure the defaults are set up correctly on your ISO image. Now, some people may be sitting here going, well, it's a lot easier said than done. I'm not the one who decided to start a Linux distribution either, or a BSD distribution. I don't even know what I clicked on. Oh. You know, like I said, I come in here to utilities. There's a lot of good stuff, but there's a lot of like I said, like, and I'm not making fun of BSD people. I think BSD people are just fine. They believe in the same open source etiquettes that us Linux people do. But where my complaint does come in is, you know, there's just a lot of things missing here. There's a lot of great GUI tools, but not all of them work right. There's a lot of software installed, but I would think there's more commonly used software. And then here's the other thing. You know, Linux has been like a second-class citizen forever, right? I mean, you talk to anyone, I'm a Windows person. And, you know, eventually Mac became somewhat of a popular platform late 2000s when they moved to Intel-based components, right? Let me show you, or did I close it? Nope, it's in this browser. So let's go back to the PC-BSD, or more on PC-BSD. Steam on PC-BSD 2 using Wine as a streaming client. Okay, look, by the way, the guy who made this video, his name is Josh. I applaud you. You're awesome. You made this work. But I'm going to show you something. Wait for it. Hold on. Whoa, what's going on? Native support of Steam and Linux? Now, I know someone's going to come on and be like, open source. All hail open source. You're using a proprietary client, and maybe that's why BSD will never support it. Well, I guess actually it's not up to them. Valve would have to port for them. So it's like, look, I've been with Linux now for 8 years, and I finally feel like we're getting somewhere. There's no point in jumping ship now to a community where I remember watching videos, not as nice as this, but videos like this like 8 years ago trying to figure out how to get certain Windows applications running in Linux. Now we have so many of our own, or even in some cases, like stuff that honestly I find better on Linux than Windows. Example being, I don't know if you guys notice, I have the icon for it. I've already put in the PPA for the new OpenShot. There's not a free video editor on Windows that is legitimately free. I'm talking both price and code. That is as good as this. I mean, even a proprietary piece of software that doesn't put ads in there, that gives you full functionality, all that good stuff, there's not one better than OpenShot 2.0. OpenShot 2.0 is not even that great, but it's definitely better than anything I've ever been able to find for Windows. Now, arguably, OpenShot 2.0 is available for Windows, but I was using OpenShot 1.4 or 5, whatever the last release was, so I'm already very familiar with it, and that was Linux only. And by the way, he has a Windows port. Yeah, unless a lot of people put money towards it or help community support it, I guarantee the Windows port won't last. The Linux one will. Just saying. Open Broadcast Studio, I think it's what it's called, OBS. I use that to do these screen recordings. There's some decent ones on Windows, but they cost a significant amount of money. And I'm like, look, to record my screen, I don't mind kicking the project a little bit of money, but to sit there and go spend $100, $150 on a decent screen recorder. Now, yet again, OBS is available for Windows, but the other argument is, okay, why wouldn't I just run it on Linux then? Why would I go out and buy Windows and have to set up Microsoft accounts and stuff? But where I'm going with this is going to BSD would be like jumping back another 8 years. And I don't even know how fast they'll actually move forward. Because, really, Linux has had a hell of a time moving up the ranks like it has, and hasn't, some would argue, hasn't even moved up that much. Would there even be room for BSD in the future? And I mean, there'll always be room from a community standpoint, but, from the fact, seeing them, that maybe because like OBS isn't supported on there. I don't think OpenShot is. We can see if they have it in their store. Let's see. Ta-da. Someone might have taken the time to port it. Okay, but still 1.4.3. And if I go here and I go OpenShot, download, OS. Oh, that's for the Windows Mac. Okay, guess you could compile. But really, Ubuntu and OS X and Windows for the 2.0.6 release. So where do I stand on this? I think this is a great attempt at BSD. I think that there's a lot here to like. I think this would actually be okay for me in an enterprise environment. In terms of me coming home and wanting to use it, no, I don't think so. And then, there's like a lot of things. Like if you want to impress me with the BSD distribution, you can't just put an easy installer on there with App Cafe. You actually have to show me some craftsmanship. I'm not impressed with the app selection, period. I mean, like I said, I'm not saying I don't have an issue with GIMP, but more people will probably find LibreOffice more interesting and useful. Maybe not interesting, but useful. Especially if I was to say set this up for my 7-year-old, right? Kids these days type everything for school. There's very little handwriting anymore for children. So, that's just additional steps I now have to take. Okay. The default application. Why do you have Firefox if you're going to default Concord? Or did you mean to make Firefox the default, but when I click on a hyperlink, it doesn't work? And then this may not be a PC-BSD issue, but I don't like how the updates feel. It feels like Windows updates. Wave after wave of updates. I don't want to go through that. And mind you, the updates took flipping forever to install, and I'm not even talking just downloading. I mean, I'm talking like the physical installation portion. Now, that could be a virtual thing. So perks are lots of GUI tools. Very honestly, I think a Windows user who doesn't do a lot on a computer, like uses web browser, word processing, well, not word processing, doesn't come with it, web browsing, would find this very, very familiar. Like a Windows administrator would find this very familiar. The other thing I will say is runs flawlessly virtually. That is nice. So if you guys are like, well, I don't know if I want to test it virtual. You guys notice how like some of the videos I do, like everything's all like big. You notice how everything looks pretty normal here? It does do very well in a virtual environment. And no, I did not download the PC-BSD virtual image. I literally just downloaded an ISO and installed it like normal. So I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. Just because, like I said, I don't care about lack of apps. I don't care about Wine being used to make Steam Stream work like that video is going to do. I mean, I do, but I'm not going to knock a video down or a distribution or another set of operating systems down for that. But I do expect your default applications to work, and I do expect that if you're going to have redundant software, they all should be able to accomplish the same task. I shouldn't click on a display or a display setting system in PC-BSD control panel and it doesn't work, or when it wants me to reboot, all it asks me is, hey, is 800 by 600 okay? When I'm like, no, that's not okay. just don't. That's a really bad idea. You should take that out. But that doesn't mean this isn't right for you guys. So I'd be interested in hearing if you guys have dealt with BSD, your thoughts. I'm not saying it's not rock solid. I'm not saying it's not stable. And I'm not saying that other than updates, it's not fast. I'm pointing out just flaws for a distribution who is making the desktop for BSD finally easy. And what I bet is it's almost going to be like an elementary OS. That in the future, this is going to be a pretty rockin' OS where I could probably be willing to give up some software to have a system like this. Also, if they brought some GNOME over. And GNOME might have been an option. I don't know. This was just what came with it. I'm not a fan of KDE. I like Plasma 5, but it always gets old for me and I always have issues with KDE. So leave. And also, if you guys ever watch like the startup process, it's also the startup process is a little scary. You see a lot of things like error. But yet again, that could be a virtual deal. That really could be a virtual deal. So, close Windows. Okay, so it's kind of like Windows. When you go to shut it down, it has to throw applications up at you as well. Yeah, that's great. I will continue to use Linux, but I did figure BSD was worth it. I've been reading a lot about people going, wow, BSD is awesome. BSD is great. And I do see a lot of benefits to it. But I do think that Linux is moving along nicely with its application support. As Ubuntu users, we'll be receiving ZFS support in the next release. There's a lot to like about Linux as well. I would say more so than BSD. The only benefit I see to BSD is if you're a developer, they are a smaller community. I'm not saying they're easier to get in, but there's less people you have to jump through to get something probably done around there. And that is a downside to Linux, and I think that's where the big attraction to BSD is for a lot of people is, hey, we want to do this. All in favor? Cool, let's do it. Whereas, Linux, there's just mass chaos. You may get smited by Linus at some point, and it just all goes downhill. And really boils down to what is Debian, Fedora, and OpenSUSE doing? Not even Ubuntu. I mean, the whole upstart versus systemd. Systemd won. Why? Because Ubuntu was like, nope, we're going to continue on upstart, and Debian said, we're not. And then Ubuntu went, yeah, I guess not us either. So that is a benefit to BSD. As always, I can't guarantee the next video will be. And I know I've had some people who sit down and say, hey, you talk too much, then don't watch my video. And there's probably some people who sit down and go, God, you do these like once a month, once every 2 months, once every 3 months. Sometimes you do like two of them back to back, week after week. Can't guarantee when they get done. They get done when they get done. And if you choose to watch, you choose to watch. If you choose not to watch, you choose not to watch. I hope everyone, though, enjoys this video. And let me know if you gave not free, but PC-BSD a try. Thanks.